Hey guys, it is time for the June 11th edition of the Rob Carson Show video podcast. Are you ready?
It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
Hi guys, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here on this Monday. Hope you had a glorious weekend. Hot in Kansas City, the Kansas City area where I live, but we have a hot show lined up for you. See what I did there? Yeah, we got a hot show lined up for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the, just what's happening with the Singapore summit with the president and Kim Jung Un. I heard, actually, this is just a rumor, I heard Kim Jung Un, and this is not a joke. This is not a joke. That his motorcade swung by McDonald's. Oh, yeah. All right. Chris Wallace pays tribute to Charles Krauthammer. We'll talk a little bit about Anthony Bourdain and his suicide. Donald Trump on the G7, backing out of the G7 agreement with Canada and other left-leaning nations that have been bee-slapping us for years. I don't know if you knew this, but the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup. Alex Ovechkin's been partying his butt off. And I've got some video from that. Oh, let's see what else. Bill Maher. He hates Trump so much that he's hoping for a crippling economic recession in the country. He's such a tool. All sorts of stuff. We're going to get to video. We're going to get to just thoughts on everything. So let's start with Donald Trump arriving in Singapore. What he calls a mission of peace landed yesterday. Singapore's Paya Lebar Air Base for a historic summit. Asked by a reporter on the tarmac how he was feeling about the summit, he said, very good. Trump was met by the Singapore Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong. I'm just guessing that's how it's promoted. Kim traveled by him in a massive limousine, two large North Korean flags fluttering on the hood, surrounded by other black vehicles with tinted windows and bound for the luxurious and closely guarded St. Regis Hotel. Trump made it clear the stakes are high. Even as he believes North Korea will be at a tremendous place, if it makes the right decisions, it's a one-time shot, and I think it's going to work out very well. We will see. Nobody in North Korea knows about the summit. Did you know that? Complete media blackout, but it's always a media blackout over there. Nobody knows anything about it. It is a shame. I mean, we are saving a lot of lives, potentially. It's just a shame that the people of North Korea have to continue to suffer and will continue to suffer. The only negative about this entire summit is that it will ensure Kim Jung Un stays in power. What do you do? Vladimir Putin yesterday said he was ready to meet with Donald Trump as soon as Washington was ready. Also said that Vienna could be a possible venue for the summit. As soon as the American side is ready, this meeting would take place, depending on working schedule, of course. Putin told people in China, reporters in a Chinese city of Qingdao. The U.S. president himself repeatedly said he would consider such a meeting helpful. I can confirm it's true, Putin said. He said he did not discuss a possible meeting venue with Trump, but many countries, including Austria, were keen to help in organizing such a summit. But I believe it's a technical issue. It's important for such things, if they take place, to have concrete contents, blah, blah, blah. The world wants to meet with Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump means business. Mr. Trump means business. They know that a poor relationship right now with the United States would not bode well for the given countries. Peace through strength. My button is bigger than yours, and mine works. We all know that Charles Krauthammer is dying. I remember seeing Charles Krauthammer the first time, probably a decade ago. And I was like, you kind of look at it, I was like, what's up with that guy? And then you get to know him and hear him speak. He was a quadriplegic. He had very limited use, if any use of his hands. I have a friend named Richie in Washington, D.C. Is the same thing. He dove off a diving board and broke his neck. And Charles Krauthammer, at age, I think, 22, did the same thing. He was in medical school at the time, and they were studying neurological issues, and he knew as soon as it happened that he broke his neck and he would be a quadriplegic, and he laid at the bottom of the swimming pool until someone came and rescued him. That somebody like him would not just choose to give up, but go on to live an extraordinary life and have a son and be renowned for your ideas. It wasn't about a show. It was his thoughts, his ideas, his writings, his commentary. They were wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. I disagreed with him on some things. He was, he was an anti-Trumper essentially. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. The grace with which he shared his final letter was something else. I'm gonna play. Actually, I was just gonna play Chris Wallace. I think I'm gonna play the letter as well. This is Fox News discussion of Charles Krauthammer's final days here coming up. Let me see if I can back this up a little bit here.
What the tears I hear.
Let's go ahead and stop this. We'll start from here and hear the letter.
We have sad news about one of the beloved members of our Fox family, Charles Krauthammer. Fox syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor releasing a letter today that we're going to read to you. Charles writes, I have been uncharacteristically silent these past 10 months. I had thought that silence would soon be coming to an end. But I'm afraid I must tell you now that fate has decided on a different course for me. In August of last year, I underwent surgery to remove a cancerous tumor in my abdomen. That operation was thought to have been a success, but it caused a cascade of secondary complications, which I've been fighting in hospital ever since. It was a long and hard fight with many setbacks, but I was steadily, if slowly, overcoming each obstacle along the way and gradually making my way back to health. However, recent tests have revealed that the cancer has returned. There was no sign of it as recently as a month ago, which means it is aggressive and spreading rapidly. My doctors tell me their best estimate is that I have only a few weeks left to live.
This is where he is so brave.
This is the final verdict. My fight is over. I wish to thank my doctors and caregivers whose efforts have been magnificent, my dear friends who have given me a lifetime of memories and whose support has sustained me through these difficult months, and all my partners at the Washington Post, Fox News, and Crown Publishing. Lastly, I thank my colleagues, my readers, and my viewers who have made my career possible and given consequence to my life's work. I believe that the pursuit of truth and right ideas through honest debate and rigorous argument is a noble undertaking. I'm grateful to have played a small role in the conversations that have helped guide this extraordinary nation's destiny. I leave this life with no regret.
This is the greatest thing. When you leave your life, you leave your life, and I haven't left mine, fortunately. But really all that matters is that you were loved and you loved. This is so graceful and beautiful, and I just want to say God bless you to Charles Krauthammer.
It was a wonderful life, full and complete with the great loves and great endeavors that make it worth living. I am sad to leave, but I leave with the knowledge that I lived the life that I intended.
That is genius. And here's Chris Wallace, personal friend, talking about him.
Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace joins us live from Singapore. Chris, your thoughts as we learn about our beloved memory of this Fox family, Charles Krauthammer.
Well, what the tears I hear in your voice are the tears that I shed about 10 days ago when Bret Baier shared a personal email very much along these same lines that he had received from Charles. As you read the email, as you just read it now, you didn't know where the story was going, and it seemed hopeful. And then as he discovered to his shock the cancer had returned, and there are two lines in it when he talks about the final verdict is in, my fight is over, and finally when he says that I lead this life with no regret. It is such quintessential Charles Krauthammer.
Yeah.
It is so graceful. It is so honest. It is so brave. There is so much to say about Charles Krauthammer. I mean, just the origins of his story at Harvard Medical School, 22 years old.
Here's the story.
Jumped into a swimming pool one day, a strong, strapping man, and broke his neck.
Yeah.
And as only Charles could tell the story, he knew that he had broken his neck because he was studying the central nervous system. In fact, the textbook was on the pool deck. And as he lay there at the bottom of the pool before somebody rescued him, he realized exactly what had happened. Now, so many of us would have crawled into a ball or been filled with self-pity. I never, in all the years I knew Charles, ever heard him express any sense of pity. Why me? He led his life fully, vibrantly. Yes, he was very badly disabled, no use of his legs, almost no use of his hands, and yet he lived a full life. He had a car outfitted so that he could drive the streets of Washington. He
Amazing.
loved his Washington Nationals. He led a life of passion and of great consequence. I think about Charles. He went on to become a great psychiatrist. He then joined the Carter administration, and as part of the Washington conversation, then became one of the masters, first at the New Republic and Time, and eventually we were honored and graced to have him at Fox News. A couple of things about Charles. First of all, you couldn't read a Charles or listen to a Charles commentary and not learn from it and not be stunned.
I apologize for playing this. I just think it's fascinating.
By how gracefully and beautifully and forcefully it was written. I think the thing that I admire most about Charles, though, is that in a world in which there's a tendency to fall into tribes. You're in this camp or you're in this camp. Charles' camp was his honesty, his values, his conviction. He could be lacerating and going after the excesses of liberalism. He could be just as tough going after the betrayals of his conservatism. Charles, if you're out there, if you're watching this with your beloved wife, Robin, and your dear son, Daniel, who I know have been such a support to you in so many ways, I want you to know that I love you. I flatter myself to consider and feel so honored to consider myself a colleague of yours. You are a great man.
Very well said. I don't know Charles Krauthammer. It's interesting, though, when you watch a broadcast or when you listen to a radio broadcast, you feel like you know people. I know many of you may feel that you know me, and I'm an open book. I am an open book. You do know me. I wish I could see your faces every time I broadcast. I wish my radio audiences over the years, I could have seen their faces as they listened. God bless Charles Krauthammer. Anthony Bourdain, which is this, and then a lot of people I've seen on the Liberty One page, they've gone after Anthony Bourdain because of his politics, and Bourdain was a leftist. Bourdain had a great show. I used to watch. He did parts of Unknown on CNN, but he did a Travel Channel show called No Reservations, which my wife and I watched religiously. I thought it was fascinating. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved his narrative. I loved the show that he did with I'm drawing a blank on his name. Why am I doing this? Ted Nugent. He did a show with Ted Nugent. He went out to Ted Nugent's ranch. The complete polar opposite left politically, and he got Ted Nugent to drink a beer with him. And Ted Nugent talked about on his property about, if he cuts down a tree, he plants two. He manages the species on his acreages. And it was fascinating. They shared a meal together, and I watched many, many, many shows. I remember when I think Bourdain was in Beirut with his brother, and a terrorist attack happened, and Hamas just went nuts, and they were hunkered down in a hotel. And I remember that Anthony Bourdain cooked, and I think he made coq au vin. which is chicken and red wine. So I think he made coq au vin. Or no, it was beef bourguignon. It was beef bourguignon. I remember that. And it was neat to see Anthony Bourdain cook because he's a renowned chef. But it was neat to see him cook. Hunkered down in this hotel as radicals in trucks drove by, threatening death to, America, death to Israel and whatnot. There was a fascinating piece. Working on an upcoming episode of his show, Parts Unknown, Jeff Zucker, who looks exactly like Homer Simpson, said Tony will be greatly missed. Not for only his work, but his passion. Okay, well, sure, I get it. 1999, he wrote a New Yorker article, Don't Eat Before Reading This. That became a best-selling book in 2000, Kitchen Confidential, Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly. And he went on to stardom. Cook's Tour on the Food Network, then Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations Travel Channel. No Reservations was a huge hit. 2013, Bourdain and CNN brought him over to the network, Parts Unknown. 11 seasons. Accepted a Peabody Award in 2013. Bourdain described how he approached his work. He says, we ask a very simple question. What makes you happy? What do you eat? What do you like to cook? And everyone in the world, we go and everywhere in the world we go and ask these simple questions. We tend to get some really astonishing answers. Kate Spade killed herself this week in a Manhattan apartment. She had just sold her company for several $1 billion. Money can't buy you happiness. Anthony Bourdain didn't come down from his hotel room for a rustic French dinner Thursday night. It was the first sign of something wrong. We thought it was strange, writer Maxine Voyenson told the New York Times. It was a no-show. Mr. Rippert thought it was strange, referring to Eric Rippert, the renowned French chef, who would find close friend Bourdain upstairs the next morning, hanged in his hotel room. Rippert is interesting, Ripper or whatever his name is. I've seen him on the show, and I really enjoyed their rapport together. I really enjoyed it. Friday morning, Bourdain was not picking up his cell phone in his hotel room. He apparently used a belt of his hotel bathroom to hang himself in the bathroom. Apparently, the suicide appeared to have been an impulsive act. No indication he was consuming alcohol the days before his death. This is something you may not know. I mean, I saw this a few years ago on No Reservations. And I don't know if this had anything to do with it. Anthony Bourdain had been a heavy smoker most of his life, and he was developing symptoms of emphysema. I wonder if there were some health issues involved, and he just said, you know what, I'm not going to begin the downhill slide. I could be completely wrong. It's a shame because he was only 61 years old. And politics aside, I enjoyed him. I really enjoyed him. I really enjoyed watching him. CDC, I don't want to make this all bummer. Jeez, it's kind of bummer, right? Rate of suicides has increased 30% in this country since 1999. 45,000 lives aged 10 or older were lost to suicide in 2016. 54% of those died from suicide deaths. Did not have a known mental health issue. Suicide is one of the three causes of death that's on the rise. 10th leading cause of death in this country. This is insane. Half of people who died by suicide did not have a known mental health condition. Relationship problems or loss, substance misuse, physical health problems, and job, money, legal or housing stress often contributed to risk for suicide. Firearms, the most common method of ending a life. The recent overall suicide rates, 2014 to 2016, varied fourfold from 6.9 per 100,000 residents per year in Washington, D.C. to 29.2 per 100,000 residents in Montana. CDC said we saw higher increases with middle-aged people, but we did see increases in younger people and older people. Essentially, every age group, other than those over age 75, saw increasing rates of suicide during that period. Chances are you know someone who knows someone who committed suicide. I don't know someone who has committed suicide. I do know that my son, a couple weeks before his graduation from high school this year, A 15-year-old freshman killed himself. I do know that my nephew, who is now living in Washington, D.C., I believe he's 23 years old. Right after his senior year in high school, his best friend killed himself. It is enormously painful. It is a selfish thing to do. It is. It is a selfish thing to do. It's just awful. As someone who has experienced a depression in my life, I've never seriously considered suicide. I have too much to live for. And most importantly, I would never want to cause the pain that suicide causes people. It's just not an option. And I've been through some rough patches. Most recently, I'll just say the last 2 months have been hell. That's all I can tell you. The last 2 months of my life have been hell. I won't give you all the details. Let's move on. G7 summit. Donald Trump says the United States is paying 270% on dairy products going to Canada, among other things. I don't know a whole lot about this, but Donald Trump stunned the world by rejecting a joint statement that traditionally follows the G7 and has escalated his feud with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's a weak little leftist fop. Calls him dishonest and weak. The joint communique, apparently, which Donald Trump failed to endorse just hours after the members came to a consensus in Quebec. The joint communique is a statement of broad goals and principles endorsed by the G7, and Trump's refusal means that this will be the first year that the annual summit fails to issue one. Trump also slammed Trudeau for making false statements and accused him of being meek and mild in their one-on-one meeting on Friday before the Canadian leader came out swinging against the U.S. in a press conference Saturday. Okay. Trump tweeted, based on Justin's false statements at his news conference and the fact that Canada is charging massive tariffs on to our U.S. farmers, workers, and companies, I've instructed our U.S. reps not to endorse the communique. As we look at tariffs on automobiles flooding the U.S. market. You know what? And, it's time we pulled out of the Paris Accord, the Climate Accord. We pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal because we're tired of being bitch slapped by the rest of the damned world. How's that sound? We're tired of it. We're tired of being abused by China. We're getting China back in line, reducing our trade deficit with China dramatically. He's playing hardball. The guy knows what it's like to try and do business in other countries. He knows how we get slapped around, even though we're the most powerful economic engine in the history of mankind. Here is Donald Trump saying he's tired of the world using the United States as a piggy bank.
This was a positive meeting, but from the outside it seemed quite contentious. Did you get any indication from your interlocutors that they were going to make any concessions to you? And I believe that you raised the idea of a tariff-free G7. Is that
I did. Oh, I did. That's the way it should be. No tariffs, no barriers. That's the way it should be. And no subsidies. I even said no tariffs. In other words, let's say Canada, where we have tremendous tariffs. The United States pays tremendous tariffs on dairy, as an example, 270%. Nobody knows that. We pay nothing. We don't want to pay anything. Why should we pay? We have to, ultimately, that's what you want. You want a tariff-free, you want no barriers, and you want no subsidies, because you have some cases where countries are subsidizing industries, and that's not fair. Mm-hmm. So you go tariff-free, you go barrier-free, you go subsidy-free. That's the way you learned at the Wharton School of Finance. I mean, that would be the ultimate thing. Now, whether or not that works, but I did suggest it, and people were, I guess they're going to go back to the drawing board and check it out, right? But we can't have an example where we're paying, the United States is paying 270%. Just can't have it. And when they send things into us, you don't have that. I will say it was not contentious. What was strong was the language that this cannot go on. but the relationships are very good, whether it be President Macron or with Justin. Justin did a really good job. I think the relationships were outstanding.
I love the fact that he calls him Justin. Because the guy's like half Donald Trump's age, and he's known for wearing stupid-looking socks. All right? So the president's calling him Justin. Not Mr. whatever, Trudeau, or President Trudeau, or whatever, Prime Minister, I don't know what the hell they are in Canada.
But because of the fact that the United States leaders of the past didn't do a good job on trade, and again, I'm not blaming countries, I'm blaming our people that represented our past. It's got to change. It's going to change. I mean, it's not a question of, I hope it changes. It's going to change 100%.
And this is, I'm going to get into, he delivered a powerful message, and he left them begging for more. He left them begging for more. He did the same thing with North Korea. Now they're meeting. Now Kim Jung Un is meeting with him. I mean, think about this. In Singapore, Donald Trump is going to meet with Kim Jung Un. Kim Jung Un is considering getting rid of his nukes. Getting rid of his nukes wholesale. No longer being a nuclear power. Can we depend on this happening? No, we can't depend on him. He's not a trustworthy person. But I'll tell you, when faced with a strong American leader, and knowing that while he might be able to mete out some substantial damage and kill many people in nations nearby, he knows that effing with the United States will result in the end of him and his country. We don't F around. We don't F around. This is not 1950. This is not going to happen. We don't send our Secretary of States over with autographed basketballs by Michael Jordan. No, we don't do that anymore. But here's the media. Over the last year or year and a half of the Trump administration, for sure that Donald Trump was going to get us to war, not to the peace talks in Singapore.
There is a coming war, most likely. Richard Haas, I think you'd agree. It is more likely than not.
God, he's such a little pea-whipped D-bag. Him and Mika, dear God.
That there is a conflict, possibly a full-blown war with an emerging nuclear power.
We're actually close.
It won't be a full-blown war. We will annihilate them. It's not the same as it was in the past. It is not the same as the Korean War. It is not the same as the Vietnamese conflict. There is no way on God's green earth that North Korea would stand a snowball's chance in hell of winning a war with the United States or coming to an armistice agreement like they did 60-some years ago.
Sir, in my view, to a nuclear war with North Korea and in
morons.
that region than we've
wrong about everything
been. And I just don't see I don't see the opportunities to solve this diplomatically at this particular point.
Well, really? Oh, this should be Rich. Dan Rather.
We're probably closer to an outright war with North Korea than we have been in a very, very long time.
Really? Yeah.
And I think I think
we're farther than we've been in a very long time.
20% chance that we'll end up exchanging ordnance with North Korea.
A 20% chance. That from the Department of Statistics you pull out of your rear end.
At some point in a fairly significant way.
A 20% chance. It's like, there's 20% chance of showers tonight. We've got a high-pressure system north pushing the low-pressure system south. And we could see a 20% chance of precipitation later on. 20% chance of war. Some sort of sharing of ordnance with North Korea. I'm just saying it could happen.
About a 30% chance of war, I'd say, from where I sit right now.
Well, you said a 20% chance. Now you're saying the 30% chance.
Now, probably not that far off.
I'm really worried about a accidental move toward conflict, given the overall refusal to comply with the Security Council.
Stop! I put my coffee down on the button. Damn it, it's accidental.
And the lack of trust, the lack of communication, the high risk of some kind of miscalculation.
Is he actually moving around in his chair? Well, that was kind of weird. Here we go.
Don't flinch.
Here are the, what is it? My friend Chris Plant, who does a nationally syndicated show, calls these two the Pigeon Sisters.
I mean, you have reason to be scared of a war that could wipe out 500,000.
He's just wrong about everything.
People.
No, I just think he wants to use nukes. That's what I think.
And she's dumb as a box of rocks without the rocks.
Well, they could easily construe what he's been saying as
oh, God, Jim's clapper.
A declaration or at least a threat of war. What is the fuse?
He looks like, what was it? What was that movie with Will Ferrell? That he was the Avery. What was that movie with Will Ferrell when he was the big-headed villain? Megamind. Yes, he reminds me of Megamind.
What is the ignition point for Kim Jung Un's fuse with this provocative rhetoric?
Should be concerned, and I think that we should be concerned.
I've had enough of these harpies. I mean, you know, it's amazing. Honestly, it really is amazing. It's why I don't consider myself to be. I'm an entertainer with an opinion. I'm not a pundit. I'm not a pundit. You know, whatever, pundit. Pundits are wrong most of the time, at least half of the time. Both sides of the political equation, they're wrong. Everybody was wrong about Donald Trump winning the election, except for Ann Coulter and a couple of others. It's like meteorologists. It's like the sports talk radio hosts. It's the same thing. They act like they know everything in the world, but there's no way to quantify the outcome. There's no way to say whatever that horse was that won the. Hold on. Watch it yesterday. The Triple Crown. Triple Crown won. You're going to hate me. I mean, Justifiable. Yeah, Justifiable won the Triple Crown. And history making. It's a history-making thing. Justify made history for the 13th time. The Triple Crown has been won 13 times. And, and it's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. It's a rare thing. But now it's happened 13 times. So maybe it is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But is it really historical? Because 13 horses have done it. 13 horses have won the Triple Crown. So while it is they breathe rare air, it's really not historical anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe if they added a quadruple crown, they do a quadruple crown. If they did quadruple crown, then you're talking history. Because somebody wins that, then that's historical. But it's been 13 times. It's been 13 times. I mean, it is neat. I'm not sure how many times it's happened in my lifetime, but it's happened a number of times. Hey, it was kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Donald Trump, one of the reporters in the press corps at the G7 summit, he correctly identified them as someone from CNN. Here he is calling out a reporter for CNN. Fake news.
Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As you were heading into these G7 talks, there was a sense that America's closest allies were frustrated with you and angry with you, and that you were angry with them, and that you were leaving here early to go meet for more friendlier talks with Kim Jung Un in Singapore. And I'm wondering if you view it the same way, and do you view the U.S. alliance system shifting under your presidency away?
Who are you with, out of curiosity?
CNN.
I figured. Fake news, CNN. The worst. But, I could tell by the question. I have no idea you're with CNN. After the question, I was just curious as to who you're with. You're with CNN. I would say that the level of relationship is a 10. We have a great relationship. Angela and Emmanuel.
And call them all by the first name now. He's calling, they're like sitting around the table on The Apprentice.
Justin, I would say the relationship.
Old Justin over there in Canada.
Is a 10. And I don't blame them.
Did they call him Donald? Met well with Don. Things were well, Or I guess it's the candidates. Yeah, I met with Don there, Yeah, we had a good meeting there. We did, yeah.
I blame, as I said, our past leaders for allowing this to happen. There was no reason this should happen. There's no reason that we should have big trade deficits with virtually every country in the world. I'm going long beyond the G7. There's no reason for this. It's the fault of the people that preceded me. And I'm not just saying President Obama. I'm going back a long way. You can go back 50 years, frankly.
Yeah.
It just got worse and worse and worse. You know, we used to be a nation that was unbelievably cash flow oriented, had no debt of any consequence, and they'd build the highway system. We built the interstate system virtually out of cash flow. And it was...
I love it when he talks business. I love it. We have a chief executive. We have a chief executive. We call him the nation's chief executive. He's a chief executive. And he's dragging the world kicking and screaming into market-based economic principles. And he's saying bull crap. You want my business? You're going to have to do this. And if you don't, I'm walking.
It was a lot different. No, we have a very good relationship, and I don't blame these people, but I will blame them if they don't act smart and do what they have to do, because they have no choice. I'll be honest with you. They have no choice. They're either going to make the trades fair because our farmers have been hurt. You look at our farmers for 15 years, the graph is going just like this, down. Our farmers have been hurt. Our workers have been hurt. Our companies have moved out and moved to Mexico and other countries, including Canada. Now, we are going to fix that situation. And if it's not fixed, we're not going to deal with these countries.
Love it. I just love it. Tired of being bee-slapped by the rest of the world. We don't have to be. We are in the premier position of power and authority. This president doesn't bow to other leaders. This president doesn't send pallets of cash to countries for nuclear arms deals. This president doesn't release 4-star generals of the Taliban for traitors. CNN's, I guess this is Jim Hardwood, was watching the president, who I thought, pretty much kicked ass there. Didn't you think he kind of kicked ass there? Or John Harwood, his name. John Harwood. Now, this goes along with, CNBC, MSNBC, and others questioning Trump's mental state because they don't agree, and when they see him stronger. And this goes with the Pigeon Sisters that I mentioned, that my friend Chris calls Joe and Mika. John Harwood attempting to diagnose some sort of mental disorder, even though Donald Trump kicked ass and took names at the G7.
Say, Joy, I don't think the upshot of this press conference was about tariffs. I'll be honest, as a citizen, I'm concerned about the president's state of mind. He did not look well to me in that press conference. He was not speaking logically or rationally. Right. It sounded as if he was making stuff up, saying, China told me nobody's ever talked to us, or saying, I talked to Justin Trudeau, and he can't believe he was getting away with so much trade stuff. I don't think those things are true. And there was something about his affect which was odd. Surely
he's got dementia. I mean, the CNN put this on the table in January. I remember I was in Atlanta auditioning at WYAY, and they didn't hire me. The biggest mistake in their history. But that said, kidding, of course. They spent an entire day on Donald Trump being mentally unfit to be the president of the United States. Some sort of dementia, whatnot. That went away. Well, it's coming back now with this doofus, John Harwood, on CNBC. MSNBC.
Kind of languid from him. I don't know what it means, but he did not look well to me.
Yeah, and Malcolm, you have...
Oh, you're in your speculation like you know what the hell you're talking about. Of course, it's on Morning Joy's program, so she wouldn't attempt to ask a follow-up question. Not one little bit. Not one little bit. Oh, this is fantastic. Remember what happened in the 2016 election with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton working with the DNC and funding the DNC to keep it out of bankruptcy and consequently eliminating Bernie Sanders from the race. It was rigged. I mean, we all know it was rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton. She was fed debate questions. She was funding the DNC. Bernie Sanders never had a shot. He never had a shot. Well, now the DNC is attempting to, 2.5 years out, eliminate Bernie again. This is fantastic. Listen to this story.
A new rule adopted by the Democratic National Committee could prevent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders from running as a Democrat for president.
This is just rich.
Here it is. The rule adopted Friday is aimed at preventing non-Democrats from seeking the party's 2020 presidential nomination. Sanders, as you might know, identifies as an independent.
Yeah.
The change requires
a socialist. He calls himself a socialist, but he won't admit he's a socialist. He won't join the Socialist Party. He's an independent. Yeah.
All candidates trying to get on the ticket to, quote, run and serve as Democrats. DNC officials say it's part of a push to limit the power of so-called super delegates.
Sure, the old super delegates. Whatever. They're already working to eliminate him 2.5 years out. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Bill Maher. Who is a godless, just douchebag. I can't watch his show. Sorry. I mean, I saw a taping of he did a comedy taping in St. Paul, Minnesota over 20 years ago, and I was there, and it was funny, and then he kind of became this political tool. And that's fine. That's fine. I just choose not to watch him. He's a snotty, snarky, elitist. And so I don't choose to watch him. I just don't. I think what he says is vitriolic. I think it's venomous. He actually said that he hopes that the country plummets into a deep recession, so that Donald Trump will, essentially be out of office. Here is Bill Maher from his show on Friday.
I feel like the bottom has to fall out at some point. And by the way, I'm hoping for it, because I think one way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy. Yeah. So please bring on the recession. Yeah. Sorry if that hurts people, but it's either root for a recession or you lose your democracy.
How is that, Willie? How are we losing our democracy with Donald Trump as president? Donald Trump has not weaponized the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the IRS. He's not weaponized any of those. We're seeing that happened under Barack Obama, first and foremost, with Lois Lerner and the IRS going after 501c3s, Republican and conservative 501c3s. Anyone with conservative viewpoints were asked intrusive questions and delayed from getting 501c3 approval until after the 2010 election. Many of them still don't have it. We saw the FBI and the DOJ preventing Hillary Clinton from being indicted for having a private server, an unsecure server, as Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton's foundation and Bill Clinton's foundation making hundreds of millions of dollars from Russian companies, signing off on the Uranium One deal, 1/5 of our country's uranium reserves going to a Russian company. We saw the FBI implanting a spy in the Trump campaign and creating out of whole cloth a scandal that did not exist to distract from the real scandal, which was Russian collusion with Hillary Clinton to buy influence as the Secretary of State and eventually as the President of the United States. And it didn't work out very well, did it? No, it didn't work out. What is Donald Trump doing to subvert democracy, Willie? What is he doing? Oh my God, he's giving the media what for? What is he doing? He's getting rid of regulations, odious regulations for every new regulation proposed. I've heard as many as 20 going bye-bye. It was originally just 2 going bye-bye. You see economic freedom, chances of economic freedom and opportunity growing dramatically. Excuse me. Dear God, Barack Obama was unbelievable as far as going after democracy in this country. You out of your mind? Sanjay Gupta, anybody? Benghazi, the filmmaker, supposedly who caused the Benghazi attack when it was actually a planned and thought out terror attack. Guy was jailed in the U.S. Give me a break, Bill. Jeez. Honestly, I can't watch the show. I don't have HBO. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Netflix is what I got. Netflix, we got a bunch of Amazon Prime on our We got a bunch of stuff. Tucker Carlson has been asking a variety of leftist guests about this FBI agent that was implanted in the Trump campaign. Okay. This was a spy. This is sickening. Why, if they were concerned about Russian collusion, why didn't they implant a similar FBI informant in the Hillary Clinton campaign, knowing that Hillary Clinton got over $150 million from Russian companies after the Uranium One deal went through? Please. Here is Tucker Carlson. The reason why I'm playing this bite, this guy's running for Senate in the state of Minnesota. It really is an excuse just to watch this guy talk, okay? Because I'm going to mock him because it is really, he's awful. Okay, so I'm going to make fun of him, and I'm going to make fun of him. But watch this guy talk. First of all, his reasoning and logic are, please. And then just, there's the way he talks. You'll understand.
So we know that an FBI and CIA informant on the government payroll, making quite a bit of money from the government.
Made a lot of money, yeah.
Made contact with at least 3 members of the Trump campaign.
I don't think most FBI agents make like $1 million in a year.
During the campaign, gathered information from them surreptitiously and passed it back to the Obama administration.
Now, I believe this guy is a ventriloquist. I think Richard Painter is a ventriloquist, and I'll explain why when you see him speak.
You can argue that was...
Actually, you'll figure it out.
I'm open-minded. But that's spying. Tell me why it's not spying.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives has already talked about this, Paul Ryan.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives has already talked about this. He rarely opens his mouth.
Gowdy, Richard Burr over in the United States Senate Intelligence Committee.
He barely moves his lips. It's like he's ventriloquist.
And there is a consensus among Republicans and Democrats because they have seen the relevant information, including a lot of them have seen the classified information, which I have not seen, and neither has Fox News seen the classified information. And I don't know if this is the news channel or the fiction channel.
I don't know if this is the news channel or the fiction channel. Right here. I don't know.
We need to focus on the facts here.
Okay,
settle down, Rich.
Including the Republican leaders.
Wait, hold on. Slow down. If you would, please stop with the invective.
How does he run for office when he talks like this all the time?
And explain to me, again slowly, why, given the fact set that I just presented to you, and I think we can agree that that's true, that's not spying.
No, I don't think we can.
Under what circumstances would
I don't think we can. I don't think so.
Well, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives has looked at the facts, and Richard Burr over in the Senate and the Intelligence Committee has looked at the facts, including the classified information, which I have not seen. And Fox
so
News
what do you think?
Hold
on.
Fox News has not seen.
Okay, you've already said that. You've already said that. Hold on. I understand. You're repeating yourself, and you've just confirmed that whatever Republican leaders say you believe. So it's a little odd you're running as a Democrat. Another conversation.
No.
But suggest to me what they might know. Hold on. Suggest to me what they might know. Just speculate, if you would. Just go crazy as a former law professor. What they might have seen that would...
Imagine his class. Hello, my name is Richard Painter. I'm going to be your professor for the next semester.
Lead them to believe the facts that I just laid out that are not contested do not amount to spying. Not whether justified or not, but why is that not spying?
Any Republican who saw a shred of evidence that the Obama administration was spying on the Trump campaign would clearly have said it was spying, and yet the Speaker of the United States...
That's really your explanation?
Yeah, okay. I can't take it anymore. Oh, let's see. I've got a couple of other stories that I want to get to that I think you're going to enjoy. Oh, I've got a really good feel-good story I want to share with you in just a second. About some high school students who did something really cool. I was going to do it on my last show, but I got cut off. Louis Farrakhan appears to have been de-verified on Twitter. He's a notorious racist and anti-Semite. Has several close ties to Democrat members of Congress. 2 days after he ranted about satanic Jews and the synagogue of Satan, he was de-verified, whatever the hell that means, on Twitter. Here's a little bit from that sermon. Listen to this guy. He's just seething with hate, and he's insane.
You recognize Satan. I wonder
will you recognize Satan?
Cult of personality.
I wonder, will you see the satanic Jew at the synagogue?
Who the hell goes to this church? Who the hell goes to this church?
Of Satan, which has many races in it. Because Satan has deceived the whole world. Think about the message that I was blessed by God to give you today. No.
Sorry.
Think about what they're going to say.
Yeah. Okay, I can't take it anymore. Louis Farrakhan. Who the hell goes see Louis Farrakhan? Sits in his church pews. I don't know, maybe the same people who would go to a Reverend Wright's church for 20 years. Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Another rabid anti-Semite. Huh. Soldier who at his West Point graduation took his hat off, and there was a note inside of it that said communism will win. He has been other than honorably discharged from the service. This guy's name is Rapone. And Spencer Rapone. The news of his discharge came by announcement that he would be one of the speakers of the 2018 Socialism Conference in Chicago. Here's his bio, according to the conference. Spencer Rapone is our former Army Ranger infantry officer recently separated from the military for speaking out against its imperialist violence. Leave the military, you douche. He enlisted as an infantryman out of high school in 2010, deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. After returning from his combat tour, he applied and was accepted into the United States Military Academy at West Point. Graduating and receiving his commission May 16th, deciding he could no longer stomach the immorality of U.S. imperialism, he spoke out against the reprehensible actions of the military in September 2017, ultimately resigned his commission, was separated from the Army June of 2018 with an other than honorable discharge. He belongs to the Democrat Socialists of America. In June 8th of 2017, he said, he tweeted, I was so pumped for you to go on Mattis on the latest EP, whatever that is, definitely the most evil, vile F in the current administration. When he's talking about Mike Pence in a tweet, holy S, what in the world do these people live in? What world do these people live in? Mediocre and conservative. Pence is an effing medieval, cold-blooded killer, which is, of course, stupid. Any commissioned officer who uses contemptuous words against the president, vice president, secretary of defense, secretary of the military, department, the secretary of transportation, governor or legislation of any states, while he's on duty or present, shall be punished as a court-martial. So he's done. And I'm glad he's done. He's a douche. Marco Rubio also sent a letter to the Secretary of Defense asking that he lose his commission and be forced to repay the cost of his education, and I think he should. He should. He's an idiot kid who doesn't understand what awful things communism and socialism have wrought, including 100 million dead people last century. Alex Ovechkin, I don't know if you heard the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup. Kind of cool. I was very thrilled about it. I lived in D.C. for a number of years, about a dozen, and I like to go see the Capitals play. I wasn't a huge fan, but it's a big deal when a team like that wins, and Alex Ovechkin is one hell of a player, and he's been on just a tirade ever since. He was fun to watch at the championship game when they won, hauling around the Stanley Cup, and he's been. He was actually at a restaurant. Ran into Jared and Ivanka Trump at a DC eatery while celebrating with the team. He was seen doing a keg stand on the Stanley Cup, drinking beer out of it. And here he is. He threw out the first pitch at a Washington Nationals game. And here he is. Apparently, he had been swimming in a fountain with his shirt off. Here is Alex Ovechkin continuing the weekend-long party for the Nationals victory. I love this guy. Obi. I love this guy. That is just spectacular. I love it. I love Obi. God bless him. I'm glad for DC. I'm glad that the Nationals, are the Capitals, the Nationals, the Nationals are, a pretty good team. But the Capitals won, and I just think it's cool. It's just cool. They're a great team. Final story today. I think this is a really neat story, and I want to play it for you. Hoover High School, San Diego, California. Deborah Davis, she's a lunch lady, and she's been driving a 1976 Chevy Malibu for a number of years. I'm going to go ahead and play this story and just let it speak for itself because I love this stuff. I think it's fantastic. If I can get it to play. Here we go. Oh, boy. Is it not going to play? No, please. Let me hear the lunch lady story. Oh, crud. It's not going to play. God darn it. Well, anyway, some kids at the school, they got a Mazda that had been stolen and recovered. And the kids in the shop, the auto body shop, they cleaned it up. And they gave it to her. I wish I had the video. I sincerely apologize. She said, I feed the kids, I prepare the food, I talk to them, I stop them from fighting. They don't cuss, they have respect, and they call me Aunt Debbie. Debbie comes to campus every day with a smile on her face, ready to take on the day and serve her students, and she was driving this junker car. I wish I had the video so I could show you. I think it's pretty cool. These kids, they volunteered their time and talent to repair the dings and dents out of this Mazda. State Farm got involved. I think we need to hear stories like this every once in a while, don't we? Don't we need to hear those? Okay. It's time for me to go. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I want to thank you for checking us out here on Liberty One TV as it continues to grow with my brothers and sisters on this network. If you would please take out my swag line right here. See that red website there, tpublic.com/conservatives. All those designs are available on everything from T-shirts to mouse pads to phone covers to onesies for kids to tanks, all of this stuff. And they're funny and they're hilarious and they're awesome. So thanks for joining me tonight, guys. I will be back later in the week. I'm not going to be doing as many shows during the week because now I have a job during the week, during the day. I will be doing some shorter commentaries, and several shows during the week. So, again, thanks for joining me. God bless you guys. And we will see you again very soon. Bye.
It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Thanks for listening to the Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram. I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.